Good morning, everyone, on this beautiful summer morning in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. My name is Doug Ham, and I am the founding member, I guess, of the Manitoba Retro Computer Enthusiasts Facebook group. And throughout the last few years of running that group, met some awesome people. And I wanted to show off my retro basement this morning for those who haven't seen it. And it's kind of at peak capacity right now, peak density, everything's working. So before things start breaking, I should probably take some footage of it and show everyone how it all comes together. So I'm gonna flip my camera around. This is the last you'll see of me. And let's go into the basement. Player 1 chair. Sorry, player 2, you get that one. So we're just going to go from left to right or clockwise here from the very first computer. So this is Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego on my Apple II GS. So I've actually got two Apple II GSs. This is a ROM 3, the other one is a ROM 1. Received them in a shipping container lot, basically, that someone had bought, and like an auction, and they were selling them on Kijiji for dirt cheap, so I felt really lucky to get them and for them to be working as well. You can see I've got a couple of joystick adapters there. The IBM joystick adapter for the Gravis, and a kind of an everything joystick adapter that I've got a PS2 plugged into, PS2 controller plugged into. But of course I've also got the authentic Apple controller as well, and some Apple speakers here. And I love my 2GS. I didn't have a monitor for it, so I took a 1084 monitor that I had and did a small internal mod to get it to sync properly to the 2GS. So all in all, super happy with this. Never owned an Apple 2GS, but used them in school, and actually grade 10 and 11 they were just Apple IIs, and then in grade 12 we got the first GS, and I was absolutely hooked. Awesome computer. I've also got, if you can see down there, I've also got a NEWPRINT device, which is a virtual image writer 2. As a matter of fact, the image writer 2 is the same as a CITO 8510, and so that little thing actually is compatible to print even in color from the Apple II GS print shop. But I can also print to it from my Commodore 64 through a SuperGrafx. I can print to it through the Atari as well with a SuperGrafx Junior that I got. So it's a very versatile little device. Maybe the only thing more versatile when it comes out for the 64 will be the FujiNet. But just the way the Apple II architecture is, even though I've got a FujiNet in this, and that's how this has been launched, on a 2GS anyway, it's not possible really to virtualize a printer with it. So I imagine myself using this NEWPRINT for quite some time to come. So that's that. Oh, you might have noticed down here some spare computers as well, but we'll get to those in a jiff. So here we have a couple of computers. We've got my TI-99 4A, which is actually on and using the same monitor. Good old Car Wars. So I quite enjoy my TI-99, although I probably use it the least of all my computers. I never had one as a kid. I was just fascinated by it because it's architecturally so different than anything else that came out at the time. And kind of in that same vein, we've got the Vectrex. So yes, indeed, I have a Vectrex. This is my latest acquisition. That Mindstorm overlay is actually homemade, came out pretty well. My fingers are still sticky from the glue that put that together. I've got two controllers for it. And what I've done with this Vectrex is to put the controller ports, I extended them to the front here with extension cables because they're so short, and so when player 2 comes over to play, it's much more convenient to have them, extended out to here, set up a tray to put them on or whatnot. Let's see, moving down, I love the Vectrex, by the way. I've got a few games for it, and yeah, I can't get enough of it. Moving down, we've got Commodore SX64. I've got an Ultra Reset added into it so that the internal drive is currently set at drive 9, and it just kind of starts up that way, which is great when you have I don't know if you can see it back there, but the cartridge that's plugged in is a combination Epyx Fastload kind of remake and a Pi 1541. And it's powered by the cartridge port, and then there's a just long enough IEC cable running from it to get to the back of the Commodore. So it is really a self-contained entertainment device. Absolutely love it. Can't say I take it anywhere because I'm so paranoid about it. And yes, that is a third-party ribbon cable. I do have an authentic cable. I do. It's just that it's worth more than my house, so it's not in my house. It's stored away in my archive of additional backup units and things like that in the garage. I just prefer not to bend and break it before its time is finally up. So that's the SX64. You can also see down here we've got just a few games and joystick boxes. They're actually covering up some cable mess back there. And my library of books and magazines, small but great. I've got Bill Hurd's Back Into the Storm in there. Definitely a must read. And we'll move back up here. That's the tape drive for the TI-99, and then of course no collection is complete without one of the Coleco original tabletop arcade games. That iPad is a relic in its own right, but it's basically my scrolling cover art digital picture frame. That's what I was trying to get at. Some joysticks, although that's just a subset of the joysticks I have, kind of my favorite ones. And then we've got a couple of portable computers here. This Psion Series 5, not this one, because I had to buy it later, but the one I had back in the late 90s, that's a 5MX. I had a 5 in the late 90s, and it was my university laptop. It was crazy functional. I can't believe just how functional that thing is. You could really, once you kind of figured out the lay of the keys there, you could really touch type on it remarkably well. So I love that device. Here is a slightly less powerful device, the Radio Shack TRS-80 pocket computer. Moving along, Atari 130XE. You can see up top I've got the couple of Atari XEGS branded or colored joysticks and a zapper. That's for another machine I'll show in a moment. But yes, Atari 130XE. Never had an Atari growing up, but I like the concept of whatever 8-bit computer was the most competitive spec-wise to my favorite computer, which was a Commodore 128. And so learning more about the architecture of the Atari 8-bit line, the way the SIO port works, it's essentially a precursor to USB. Just really impressed with it. It can do so much, and you know, proof of that is this recent port of Prince of Persia. And yes, there's a port of Prince of Persia to the Commodore as well, but this one is really standing out in its own way. The graphic style is borrowed from the BBC Micro, so it's more the European look to the game. And just, I gotta say, it kind of blows me away, maybe more than the Commodore 64 port does. There's a FujiNet plugged in. I like my FujiNets, so I've got 1, 2, 3 of them right now, and probably more on the way. So that's my 130XE. Oh, should probably stop here and call out the BackBit collection. So a lot of this museum is powered by, well, three kinds of devices, I guess. We've got the FujiNets, we've got Pi 1541s for the Commodore 64s, and then we've got the BackBits. So count them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different interfaces for 7 different kinds of computers. You've got the TI-99, Atari 2600, there's Vectrex, there's Atari 8-bit, Coleco, what am I missing? I don't have the Intellivision one, but we'll get to that in a moment. Vectrex, did I mention that already? And oh yeah, the Apple. So I've got one for the Apple II as well. So even though this thing's powered by a FujiNet, it can't write to 140K Apple II discs. It's just not, hasn't been built into the firmware yet. It's not a capability yet of the pre-release FujiNet, and I'm not sure that it will be. This thing, on the other hand, allows the BackBit to plug in like an external card on its own, or an internal card, not external, internal card on its own slot, and it becomes essentially an internal drive or a disk 2 drive, and you can read and write legacy disk images. It's faster. It's really cool. The only inconvenience is having to open up the chassis and pop it in and out, and so that's kind of why I haven't been using it lately, because I do move that BackBit around from device to device all the time. To help with that though, this is an external reset button, so when I do use it on the Apple, that's what I use to reset it. But amazing device. I can't say enough about Evie and the work she's been doing. It's really the core engine that's running this whole thing, because I flip that BackBit from machine to machine all the time. It's amazing. Moving along, this deserves to be turned up. So this is my Commodore space. Right now, the machine that's in here is a PAL Commodore 64C, and you can see that there is a SideKick 64 running. It's virtualizing 8 SIDs right now and running the Tuneful 8 demo. Awesome case on that. That was provided for me by Thomas Christoph from Core i64 out in Edmonton. I would advise hitting up his shop and seeing all the cool stuff he has on offer. This is amazing. I love it. I could listen to it all day. I could play with it all day. This is actually an NTSC monitor, and the way I've got it plugged into this is through back-to-back S-Video to, there we go, back-to-back S-Video to VGA adapters. So one converts S-Video to VGA, and the other one converts VGA to S-Video. You'd think that ought not to work, or it would introduce a bunch of lag. Remarkably, it doesn't, but I had to go through so many of what ostensibly look like the exact same devices from the outside on Amazon to find ones that were the right combo to actually get this done. The end result is absolutely amazing. You do lose a little bit of that, perfect scan line clarity, but there's no flicker, there's no lag. You can totally play the most challenging PAL games like this, and I'm just so glad I had the perseverance to try it out and to find the right combination of adapters. Works like a charm. I call this the Commodore Station because it's actually got enough plugs back there too that I can swap this guy out and put one of my flat 128s in its place. My second computer ever was a flat 128. They are my favorite of any 8-bit computer, just nostalgically. Design-wise, there's nothing like them. Well, there's actually a lot like them from Commodore, but they kind of started that flat wedge look. It's so space age. I just absolutely love it. I've got a couple of NTSC Commodore 64s. This was the first one that got me back into retro technology a few years back, maybe 4 years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago. And this one here was a more recent purchase. I just love it because it's... oh wait, this is the one that I got from a few years ago, right? I switched them around here. That extra joystick cable coming out the back is actually there's an internal card in here for the CardCo Cardkey numeric keypad, and it kind of wedges in between the keyboard connector internally. Gives you an external port so that you can plug in the CardCo, which I'll show in a second. This guy here is a Canadian Commodore 64. Old serial number, fairly old internals, works like a charm. Not super compatible anymore with some of the stuff that I plug into it, but I just love the VIC-20 colored function keys, and I just love the fact that it was assembled in Canada. So yeah, that's a star of my collection as well. Whoop, almost forgot to call out a couple of other items in the collection here. Number one, this dust cover. So this is from a guy out of Mexico, Printer Boy. Look him up. He's got some amazing vinyl dust covers. I've got ones for various other machines and peripherals as well. This he actually custom designed for me, but I'm pretty sure it's now in his store. I've got ones for the monitors, which are great when I'm moving them around to a meetup or whatnot. Definitely if you're looking for very cool looking vinyl dust covers, check out Printer Boy. And next, I skipped right past these Aiwa speakers. So the thing about them that make them such an awesome addition to any Commodore 64 is that they've got Virtual Q-Sound. So they will take a mono input, basically any Commodore 8-bit system, or Atari for that matter, and they will expand it into stereo in a very convincing way. And to me, it's the only way to listen to some of these demos that aren't natively stereo. Of course, if the signal's stereo, it's going to sound more expanded, but it'll even take a mono signal and expand it into stereo, and does it super well. And if you can ever find these speakers, get them, because they are a perfect match for a mono 8-bit computer. Other things plugged into this puppy. So you'll notice this guy over here. So this is a MouSTer, and this allows USB connected controllers to act like DB9 controllers. So right now I've got a USB mouse, no, not a USB, well yeah, USB wireless mouse plugged into it, and I've been using that to play Eye of the Beholder. I do actually have a 1351, but this guy was just more convenient because the 1351 is plugged into my business computer, which we'll get to in a moment. Works like a charm. Double joystick port switcheroo here as well. Don't go with these PS2 mouse adapters, they don't work properly. But definitely buy a MouSTer, they're amazing. Some of my favorite MasterTronic games. I adore my 64. Okay, moving along to my where business happens down here. This is my Commodore 128D. I should note that Cobra Collectibles here in town is the source for the Vectrex. It is the source for the Commodore 128D, and it doesn't stop there. I bought at least one more machine from them, countless games as well. They're a great place. They're on Sargent Avenue. All sorts of collectibles, but their retro electronics is just amazing. What do they have on the shelf right now? They've got looks like a mint-in box Atari 400. I think it's a 400 they've got up there. I think they've still got an XEGS, Atari XEGS in box. They've got another Vectrex in its box. They've got Magnavox Odyssey 2s. They've got a Commodore 64 set. And prices at the sticker are reasonable, given how much things have inflated with eBay lately. And then, you know, where you go from there just depends on how pleasant your conversation is with the owner at that point, that maybe you can make the price more reasonable by the time you bring it home. So I definitely recommend Kalen and the rest at Cobra Collectibles. They'll take great care of you if you come in looking for retro electronics, retro video game systems, retro consoles. But yeah, so this is my work center here, the work part of my battle station. You can see that CardCo keypad there in the background, so that's what I was telling you about. Plugs into the Commodore 64 over there through that additional joystick port. Pretty rare. The CardCo thing is rare enough. That joystick port thing, the adapter for inside, I think you have to mail away for. So I've never seen it anywhere else, frankly, not even on eBay. But yeah, this is GEOS MegaPatch 3 running on the Commodore 128. I'm amazed it's running right now because I was having a bit of problems, I think, with my disk. Hopefully not the drive. I don't think it is. I think it's the disk itself that I'm booting MegaPatch off of. Unfortunately, the Pi 1541 that you see over there, it's great for D64s and it's usable with D81 images, but it doesn't accelerate them. Like, it's not using burst mode. And so if you resort to using it for D81 images, something like GEOS, it just takes forever to load. So I go back to my tried and true physical disks when I can. But I'm just going to boot up GeoPaint here. Now you notice how fast that booted, and you're not hearing any clunk of disk activity. And that is because, behind the scenes, see, I've got a port expander there, an expander 3, a couple of cartridges. The one in the back is a SwiftLink modem, because sometimes your business needs take you online to bulletin board systems. But the one in the front is the RAD Expansion Unit, also provided to me with the assembled case, or the 3D printed case by Thomas Christoph, and it is a software-defined cartridge like all these things are, but it allows you to emulate a RAM expansion unit. Now I've got one over there, the 512K, but what I'm doing with this is I've got a 16 meg image that I can load just by pressing the button in the back and going through the menu system, and I have a 12 meg virtual REU disk that has essentially every notable Commodore 120 or GEOS 128 application on it. I'm sure there's tons I'm missing, but basically once GEOS boots, every app I use is launched from RAM, and it is amazingly fast. Like, it's ridiculous. It's faster than like Windows is on a modern computer. I can't believe it. Is it a little bit less functional? Well, sure, but remarkably only a little bit less functional. I'm not kidding when I say that I use this thing for, well, I don't use it for my literal income for my work, but when it comes to writing letters and just basically, you know, any pastimes that aren't video gaming on a computer, I love to use this machine. I actually use Pocket Writer 3 on here as well, which is a not GEOS word processor, and going back to grade 8, I think, that was the way I did all my reports and things like that on my Commodore 128. Now that was a flat, not the D, but yeah, love GEOS, brings back a lot of memories, and to be able to run it completely out of RAM at this speed, still on authentic hardware, just tickles my stomach. So this guy over here is a little bit out of place. This is an 8-inch Windows 8 tablet that I just keep here because you know, it's 10 years old now. At some point it's going to be considered retro technology. Still works great. It's got the Wacom stylus. Best partner ever provided me the best gift ever last Christmas, which was the MasterTronic book. You can see I've got bookmarks in there because there's just some stuff that should never be forgotten. Here we have my Amiga. Just kidding. This isn't a real Amiga. Probably tell by the fact that, well, this is my catch-all, everything that I don't have physically, I've got virtually machine. So we've got WinUAE running, and of course, lest we forget, come on, you gonna do it for me? Maybe it's in the screensaver. Oh, I had Windows 98 running as well. But just like Windows 98, it's prone to do that. So you don't get to see the full effect here. But yeah, it's all emulated. I don't lose sleep over it. I love 16-bit era machines like the Amiga and the Atari ST, but I'm just kind of afraid of them because I can't repair them. Like, I'm not that good, and I understand that the repairs are more complex, and so I can keep these running, but I really can't keep a real Amiga running, I don't think, so I'm kind of shying away from it for now. Also, I don't have space. Maybe an Amiga 600 at some point would fit nicely, but for now, I emulate. And there's nothing special to it, it's just I picked that, it's an i5, I think 8th generation, picked it up at actually at Mother Earth Recycling here in town, and works great. Got 8 gig of RAM, just enough. You can see down here actually there's these smart switches. This whole place is powered by smart switches. So Alexa, turn off the Atari computer. Alexa, turn off the Vectrex and turn off the TI-99. Oh, she didn't hear Vectrex. Alexa, turn off the Vectrex. She probably couldn't hear it over the hum of the buzz of the Vectrex speaker. So yeah, many of those. This area has probably the densest number of Wi-Fi radios you could possibly cram in and still have them function. I think I've got 10 of these working 20 AC plugs But once you set it up, it works remarkably well. And then the great thing about that is you're not destroying or overusing, I guess, you're not overusing the power buttons, power switches, whether it's on the monitors or on the PCs. And also, when it's off, it's off. So with the surge protectors and everything else, I feel a little bit more confident that should there be, you know, any storms outside or whatever, that between the surge protector and maybe it's a false sense of security, but it's security nevertheless, knowing that it's turned off at the plug and not just at the computer. If you think otherwise, don't let me know. I'd rather just live my blissfully ignorant life. Alexa, turn off Commodore A and turn off Commodore C. Isn't that cool? Okay, moving along. Oh, you may have noticed there looks like a second computer down here. That is not, well, technically there's a full computer in there, that Dell, but it's actually got a couple of disk drives, the 5 1/4 and the 3 1/2, and inside is a SuperCard Pro, which I've got those plugged into. I'm powering everything from the power supply of the Dell, but I'm actually not using it as a computer. I'm using it as an overglorified disk drive case with a power supply for it. That comes out to USB. I plug that in here, and then I can run the SuperCard Pro software to either rip or write different formatted disks depending on, you know, what computer I want to write for. It's all super cool. Don't use it as much as I thought I would, just because with the BackBit and everything else, you can also, there's ways to, you know, write stuff that way too, right? You can have a BackBit plugged in acting as a virtual drive and then rip or write stuff as well. But there are times, especially salvaging disks, where being able to read something at the flux level is important. And so I'm glad it's there when I need it. Don't use it that often, but when I do, it is a lifesaver. Moving up to the console area. So here we have a small Toshiba TV. My favorite kind of brand for this because I don't have much space. It's a 13-inch or 14-inch TV, but it's got S-Video, it's got technically component in as well, and all sorts of other ports, including even ones in the front that I'm not using yet. I just absolutely love it. I'm looking for a second one. I've come across another one, but it had terrible screen burn. Someone had it on the letterboxed Weather Channel for like 5 years, so that was a no-go. And then a couple of other ones I've found have all been just far enough out of town that I'm never able to really get out there just to pick up a TV. But absolutely love it. I'll be sad if this one ever blows. Looking down here we have, well, let's start from the bottom and work up. So this is an Intellivision II. I never had one of these as a kid, but my uncle had one, had the original Intellivision, and we used to play, oh man, Sea Battle. I'm actually gonna flip it over here. Whoops. I'm sure that's fine. We had Sea Battle, we had boxing, we had, just numerous games for it, and you can see that it's kind of become, it was my early passion, so I got lots of games for it. I've got the voice controller, I don't know, what is it called, voice synthesis module, B17 Balmer, and I've got the Atari add-on for it as well, which was great until I picked up an Atari, just for the sake of completeness. But that I picked up at a thrift store, flea market, should say flea market, and the guy was had some amazing stuff. I kind of bought him out of all his cool stuff, so I hope I didn't take him out of business. That there is an LTO flash. So here I don't actually use the BackBit. There is a BackBit adapter for the Intellivision, but I had the LTO flash before, and it does everything I need, so I haven't bothered to buy a BackBit adapter. So I've got all the games on there. And then this is a business card holder. I got the idea a few years back to buy a business card holder and put all the overlays in there. So most of those are reproductions, or many of them are anyway. So, but I've got basically every overlay for every game, and a lot of fun. Still kick my son's ass in Sea Battle. Sorry, Ian. That's all I have. Give it to me. And then we have an Atari IIGS. So this was the third major system that I bought from Cobra Collectibles. Connected to it is an S-Drive Pro, which is a disk drive emulator, kind of like a Pi 1541, but it's got a touch screen and really solidly, just an amazing peripheral. It doesn't have the online capacity that a FujiNet does to either play games or get games and apps off the network, so it's not quite as convenient, but it's amazing, and it actually emulates tapes as well, so that's useful. And I love the IIGS aesthetic. Like, it just screams late 80s with the pastel colors. I've got a second one. It's a little more yellowed that I picked up at a flea market. Works fine, just doesn't look as pleasing, but I'm comforted to know that if this thing ever blows a chip or something like that, that I've got something to pull from. Atari 2600 Junior, found this at a garage sale, and when I took it to the guy to buy it, he said, "Oh, you're interested in that? I have an ADAM in the basement," and I almost dropped this and ran to the basement to get this. So, my first computer ever was a Coleco ADAM, and my parents bought it surely when it was being discounted from Zellers or Kmart or Princess Auto. I don't remember where they bought it from, Canadian Tire maybe, but I, in grade 7, did all my reports on the built-in word processor. I'll be damned if I can't still type like 110 words a minute on this keyboard. I wish this were my original one. I actually had the all-in-one ADAM. This is the, I don't know if you can see back there, but this is the expansion module 3 version. So it's plugged into a ColecoVision. These days I prefer that because it's a little more modular and easier to repair, because there's more likelihood that something in the ColecoVision is going to be what fails, and those are a little easier to source. We've got the driving controller, the roller controller for it. That's also a FujiNet, so that's my third FujiNet, and it really does an amazing job at powering this. Let me just change my switch box here. Yeah, so love my ADAM. What else do I have in there? 256K RAM expansion. I think that's about it. Yeah, but the FujiNet opens up an entire additional dimension of usefulness for it. Absolutely love my ADAM. Still impressed at the word processor. You notice there's no printer, because if you know anything about an ADAM, you know that the power supply is in the printer. I did some surgery on this thing and put in a Meanwell power supply inside. And I have it set up so that, technically speaking, I could plug the printer in, and there's a toggle switch inside if I want to power it from the printer or keep the printer plugged in and just power it internally. So if I did want to print something off the daisy wheel printer, I could, and actually, because the ribbons weren't ink but whatever that's called, kind of a one-use type thing, they're still good after like 40 years, so my printer still works fine. But the FujiNet does have a virtual ADAM printer as well. It's just that because the printer prints bidirectionally, the developers, Thomas Cherry Holmes and Company, have had no end of grief trying to emulate a bidirectional daisy wheel printer so that the characters properly line up as they should. I think it's absolute arcane science that they're doing that in the first place, so I don't give them any grief for not having perfected it yet, but I'm sure it will be perfected soon. Yeah, so that's the ADAM, the Intellivision, the Atari 2600, the IIGS, all running through this TV here. I've got a little RF switch box down there that I've been pressing to flip between things. Somewhere down here is my Atari. There it is. I normally don't have them all turned on at the same time, which is why there's so much interference there. If only one of those were plugged in at the same time, then of course it wouldn't be looking like it does. So yeah, Alexa, turn on the lava lamp. So that's more or less it. No retro battle station is complete without a label printer. You need your labels. You can see here again that I've extended the controller ports just to save wear and tear on the controller, on the consoles themselves, and also make it more convenient for two players to get into this, squeeze into this little space. One more portable computer for you, Handspring Visor. I wish this was my original, because that one I bought when Handspring first announced their devices and weren't actually shipping in Canada, so on a whim, this was back in 1998, maybe 1999, before privacy laws prevented things like this, or at least made them difficult. I found out the email address of the vice president of Handspring and just emailed him, and I said, I'm Canadian, I want a couple of your devices. Can you arrange for me to buy them? And he did. And they sent them out direct to me, so that was kind of cool. So this is a new one, or new old stock that I picked up a few months ago, just to get back and yes, that's Elite. That's Elite on the Palm, just to get back into, I forgot how incredibly functional these things are, and the USB dock and the software works fine on a 64-bit current OS, current computer. Blows my mind. Shout out to Roland for making the coolest looking speakers. I think that's it. I think that's it. This is everything. Is there going to be more? Not likely. At least not in this space. I've been given strict instruction not to build up. I can only build down, and as far as I'm concerned, there's nowhere left to build. I forgot about my software though. So just really quick, I'm not going to go through each one, but there's my full Elite collection. I love Elite, it's my favorite. Echelon with that crazy headset thing. The Star Trek games. There's Pocket, the Pocket series, or the original name before they were sued was Paperback Writer, Paperback Planner, and Filer. Got me through grade 8. Print Shop. Can't have a birthday without Print Shop. Various loose media, as well as my digital data pack collection for the ADAM. Some other games here, Full Throttle, Zach McCracken on the Commodore 64, Last Ninja Pirates. Yeah, there's some quality stuff in there. Some of my favorite games are the ones that you can't really see from the outside, kind of like a record collection, but here we have Wasteland, including the hint book. There's a Bard's Tale 1 complete, unopened. You notice I got plastic on these. I don't have plastic on my couch. I'm not that kind of a person, but some of these really just, they kind of, when I first started collecting the discs, I noticed the boxes kind of smelt musty, some of them kind of smelt smoky depending on where they came from, and so the plastic kind of helped keep that under control. But it also does protect them, so these days I just put everything in plastic. This one here is special to me. This is Earl Weaver Baseball. I remember playing this. This is the Amiga version. That part's not too special, but what's special to me is it's from Adventure Software. And that was the first real employer. Les David decided that this ridiculous kid who came in on his lunch hours, probably, I think he took pity on me and decided to put me on the payroll because I was there more than the rest of his employees. And so thank you, Les, for investing in me. So when I came across this with an Adventure Software tag on it, I just had to keep that. The rest, you can see Attack of the Petsky Robots for the Commodore 128, Planet X2 as well. So thank you, Dave Murray, for continuing to do what you do. Some of the summer games in there, and then more. Here's more RPGs. The Gold Box series, absolutely love. So I've got the full thing. Got the books too. They're kind of fun. And yeah, extending into Baldur's Gate and Mobius, etc. And of course, it has to end with the Ultima series. I don't have everything. I guess technically I do have everything, but I'm cheating a little bit because you can see the Ultima collection in there. I don't have any nostalgic connection to Ultimas 1, 2, and 3, really. I finished 4 just last year. 5 I'm working through right now. 6, my favorite game of all time, is Ultima 6, RPG or otherwise. And then 8 I haven't tried yet. 9 I did actually start last month, but realized that I should probably be a little more respectful to the previous games, so that's why I'm playing through 5 first. And then I think I'll try 8, then I'll try 9. And then of course we got a Wing Commander in there for good measure and a couple of Star Treks. So that's it. Really now, I'm done. Thank you so... Oh, I'm not done. There. Needn't say more. Now I'm done. Thanks, everybody. I didn't expect this to be 40 minutes long, but I figured it was about time to show off everything I've done down here. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your collections as well. Take care.
Fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe!